What up, everybody? This is your boy Dedrian Colon from House of Rasslin, and this is my review for the October 28th episode of WWE Smackdown. Like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the notification so that way you are notified when House of Wrestling drops its latest content. Follow me, Dedrian180, on TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram. So, tonight's AEW WWE Smackdown. Of course, there were two things that most people wanted to see. Roman Reigns in the Bloodline, and Bray Wyatt. Outside of that, I mean, you did have the return of Tennille Dashwood, aka Emma, tonight, which was, it was kind of expected because they did report it earlier in the day that Emma was going to, she was backstage, so it was like, Ronda Rousey has an open challenge. Emma, you can put two and two together. But other than that, man, this show was pretty much a very subtle build to Crown Jewel, which is ironically next week. But other than that, I mean, this was an interesting SmackDown. The biggest thing out of tonight was the Bloodline segment earlier in the show, which was after the first match. That was hilarious. The Bray Wyatt ending, for me, it left me kind of like in like flux almost, like just okay, Bray Wyatt's doing this. All right, who's this? Oh, it's Uncle Howdy. Oh, okay. But man, this was, like I said, it was an interesting SmackDown. The most entertaining thing about this show was the Bloodline segment, which was freaking hilarious. So before I get into that, I'm going to give you guys the results. So we had in the opening match, you had the Brawling Brutes, Butch and Ridge Holland. They defeated Sami Zayn and Solo Sikoa. You had New Day defeat the Maximum Male Models. You had Ronda Rousey defeat a returning Emma. Then you had Legado del Fantasma. They lost to Hit Row and their surprise partner, who filled in for the third spot in their six-man tag match, Shinsuke Nakamura. And you had Karrion Kross defeat Madcap Moss. So that was the results for the October 28th episode of WWE Smackdown. Now, let's get into this first match. So you had the Brawling Brutes and Sami Zayn and Solo Sikoa. You had Butch and Sami. They were starting off like this match really started a little bit slow, but it just built later on. And then you had Ridge do a sidewalk slam on Sami Zayn. I was going to say Sammy Guevara. Forgive me, guys. Then you had Solo Sikoa execute a beautiful Samoan drop. From there, you had the you had Sammy and Jay. So, mind you, this match really was. They've been doing it a lot in WWE, like a lot of back and forth. But towards the end of the match, you had Sammy and Jay arguing because Jey Uso actually helped and save Sami Zayn from getting a top rope, I believe, stomp or something, because Butch was on the top rope. So he pulls him out, and Sami's like, "What are you talking about? I had him. He's like, "No, I'm trying to save you." And they're going back and forth, and it's like, uh-oh, okay, something's going to happen. And the ref's counting, and you're thinking, okay, it's going to be a count out. It's like, no, it was not a count out. You had Ridge Holland. He clotheslined everybody as they're arguing, and then Sammy goes in. Ridge gets the roll up. 1, 2, 3. They win. So you have the Bloodline. You have more so Jey Uso arguing with Sami Zayn. Then Solo Sikoa is trying to calm down, and then him and Solo are getting into it. Then Jey Uso looks at him. He's starting to, get in his face, and they have the stare down. Music hits. It's the Tribal Chief with Paul Heyman. Roman Reigns is on his way, and they're like, uh-oh, Roman is not going to be happy. And I'm sorry, ever since they added Sami Zayn to the Bloodline, each and every week it gets more and more entertaining. If WWE has plans of eventually, putting Sami Zayn, out of the Bloodline, please don't do it anytime soon. Like, keep this as long, like, if you're going to eventually have Sami Zayn get kicked out of the bloodline, if it should happen around SummerSlam next year, because this cannot end before Royal Rumble or WrestleMania, because it's taking a life of its own, where originally it's like, okay, Solos comes in, they're going to kick out Sami Zayn. But with Sami here, like, it's taking a life of its own. He's the comedic element to the bloodline, which is getting the bloodline even more over, which, now that you think about it, if they had a heel faction that was very dominant, like, you could easily and subtly turn the bloodline into good guys, and you could turn Roman into the biggest baby face in WWE. And it's there. If they just do it right and just have the right pieces, like, it could be done. But man, this is so entertaining. So Roman Reigns, he comes, he shows up. He's like, we're going to address the elephant in the room. You seem to have something against me, and I'm sorry. That's what Sami Zayn says to Jey Uso. He's like, hey, can we bury the hatchet? Jey Uso looks at Sami Zayn, Sami Zayn. He's like, I don't like you. I don't like him being around my family. You don't belong here. You a fake ass Uso. And then Sami Zayn's like, hey man, what are you doing? Like, the tribal chief, said we need to make peace. We need to make peace. And Jey Uso says, I don't give a damn what the tribal chief says. And everyone's like, and you see Roman Reigns is like, turns around, is like, oh boy. Like, their segments are the best segments about WWE TV right now. Outside of Bray Wyatt, best segments. Hands down, the best segments. So you have Roman Reigns, and he's just giving this stern look, and Sami Zayn, this is where the comedic timing of Sami Zayn comes in, man. So he comes in, and he's like, man, what's Roman? Don't hold it against him. Don't hold it against him. It's that he's not very oozy. And at this moment, this was so freaking hilarious. You see Jey Uso trying to maintain that aggressive edge. I'm angry, and he's going like this, and he's trying not to laugh because it is so freaking hilarious what's unfolding right here. And you see Roman Reigns, he plays it off. He looks at him, and he looks at Sami Zayn, and the crowd's laughing, and Roman just turns around with a smile, and he's subtly laughing, and oh man. And Roman's executes this next couple of lines with a smile. He's like, man, if you keep acting like this, I'm going to take that honorary use and I'm going to make him a oos. And it's like, oh man. And then even that, you keep acting like that, I'm going to change his last name from Sami Zayn to Sami Uso. And then you get these Sami Uso chants, and you still have Jey Uso trying not to laugh. That is so funny and entertaining because you see it, and it's one of those things like maybe the audience in the arena didn't see it, but at home watching it, like you're like, man, this is funny. This is so freaking funny and entertaining. He's trying not to laugh, and it's so entertaining, man. And man, this was the best segment of the whole night. Please do not kick Sami Zayn out of the bloodline until maybe SummerSlam, if possible, because this whole Sami Zayn storyline since Solo Sikoa has joined the bloodline has taken a life on its own, and it's so freaking funny and entertaining. And honestly, looking ahead the next couple of months, like, it's going to be hard to book a legit threat to Roman Reigns when you have Sami Zayn providing the comedic relief and the crowd is behind the bloodline. And if you pay attention to the audience, they're more and more behind the bloodline. Granted, Roman Reigns is a heel, but they are behind the bloodline because of what Sami Zayn and uh, the Jey Uso dynamic and what Sami Zayn provides, and just how Sami Zayn is interacting with Jimmy Uso and the handshake, and he made Solo Sikoa laugh a couple weeks ago where he's trying not to laugh. So it's coming across as so funny, but man, it's so entertaining that the old saying, give the people what they want. Like, I don't think a lot of people want the Sami Zayn to get kicked out. It is so fun. It's entertaining. Granted, the easiest thing to put Kevin Owens with him and they strip the Usos. But man, right now, like, keep it going. Like, this is a life of its own. Just ride it till it's time to change, because man, this is me. I'm enjoying it. Like, this is much see TV. When you see the bloodline come on TV, you don't want to change the channel. And honestly, it wasn't like that months ago where it was just like, oh, Roman's here. He's doing the same thing. He's doing the same thing with Paul Heyman and the Usos. We the ones. It was very repetitive to a certain extent. Now, you don't know what's going to happen. You're like, you know what? I need to watch this. It's a breath of fresh air to the bloodline. And man, this was freaking hilarious. So we get a video package of the Viking Raiders with Sarah Logan, which they constantly show these vignettes. I really want to know when these guys are returning. What? Survivor Series? And honestly, now thinking about it after this bloodline promo, like, what's the matches? What are going to be the matches for Survivor Series and the War Games? Like, what's the dynamic going to be? Like, is it going to be 4-on-4, 3-on-3? Like, what's the... I don't know. This is really interesting. It's something that kind of has a lot of people questioning, like, okay, how's the build going to be? It seems like they spent more of a build for Crown Jewel than Survivor Series, which is towards the end of the month in November. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. But outside of that, you get the Maximum Male Models versus New Day. You have a pre-match video where Xavier Woods is like, yeah, they remind me of Billy and Chuck, and he mocks Eminem. Then the match happens, and I mean, basically, this was a squash match. Eminem really didn't have a Eminem. Freaking, actually, you know what? They do remind me of Morrison and Joey Mercury. Like, they actually, holy shit, they do remind me of that. Wow. Except John Morrison and Joey Mercury were actually better wrestlers. Like, put it that way. Eventually, at New Day, execute the Midnight Hour pin. 1, 2, 3, they win. Like, it's just a squash match. Then we get a backstage segment with Sonya Deville. And as she's talking, Liv Morgan attacks her. And I am enjoying this presentation of Liv Morgan. It has brought a fresh air. Like, I think that's something that's missing with a lot of wrestlers in WWE. They have this, over the top presentation, and they have, these songs, they look good, they have all this, but they're missing an aggressive aspect of their character. And if we really think about it, the wrestlers that are over with the crowd are expressing more of an aggressive nature. Seth Rollins, Liv Morgan, the Bloodline, Bobby Lashley. I'm trying to think of who else. Drew McIntyre, gets a huge pops. Sheamus, Gunther, those guys, they get, a huge crowd reactions. But yeah, so she attacks Sonya Deville, and afterwards, and by afterwards, I mean after I watched SmackDown and everything, someone noticed that there was the Bray Wyatt logo on one of the cases by Liv Morgan, and that's twice already that the Bray Wyatt logo has been visible during a Liv Morgan segment where she attacked Sonya Deville. So, again, pay attention. Could Liv Morgan be added to Bray Wyatt's faction or whatever he's gonna do? Because I'll get into that a little bit later. Then we get a backstage segment of Braun Strowman basically hyping up his match against Omos at Crown Jewel, which, me personally, maybe it's another video. I wish they would just put Omos with the New Day, because it does, like, Omos has a personality when you watch his social media stuff, but like, just give him something different and new where it expresses his personality. And again, that's another thing that subtly missing in WWE. Like, a lot of people you're not really seeing their personality that you see on social media out on the screen. Like, it's very cookie cutter and like very basic. And it's like, okay, the way it's presented, there's not a lot of range to their character to get invested in. Like, ooh, I like this aspect of, ooh, I like this aspect. Like, I don't care too much, but man, I really like when they do this. Like, it's not a lot of that on the roster, which you start doing it, it's going to be some really good stuff. From there, we have Ronda Rousey's open challenge. She comes out and she says, only great can recognize great, and you all are mediocre to recognize it. So she says that. Music hits. Emma returns. Yes. Formerly Tennille Dashwood in Impact Wrestling. She has returned to WWE. They did mention that she was released in 2017, around the same time, like a day apart or something like that, which is really interesting. Man, this match, man. Man, a few things about this match. One, when you have someone that's very, like, Ronda Rousey's more of a submission technician, and when you put someone in there that tries to do your standard wrestling moves, it does come off very clunky, almost like in the execution, and there's not a real, with anyone with an M&A background, like, there's a strategy. Boom, 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 boom. Like 1, 2, 3, 4. Like, there's a tempo to how they do things. And when you have someone that's mostly wrestling, and it's not saying it's bad or anything, it just, you have to have that right mix of like the technician submission style and the wrestling style, and it's gotta flow. And this match, like, it did not flow most of the match. Like, the moves were good, but it was just the execution into the like the flow into the next moves and everything, sequences. Like, it really didn't. What was presented didn't flow. Maybe in the audience watching it, a different story. But on TV and what was presented to us and what I saw, it was like, it really, like, some moments it did, and it was like. Like, it was really, I don't know, just really, I guess the best term is very rigid, almost. The cool thing was the tarantula on the ropes that Tennille Dashwood, or Emma, executed on Ronda Rousey, which I thought was really cool. Then you had the knee to the head on the apron by Ronda Rousey. Then you had the man, it was a choke. Like, Ronda Rousey had Emma in like a choke leg submission where she had her arm and her, like, it was a really, man, Ronda Rousey has done some like really badass submission holds, but I wish WWE would put people, man, I wish they would find a balance, because Ronda Rousey is doing some badass submission holds. It's like, yo, that's dope. But it's almost like how they're getting to the point of executing those submission holds is very rigid. Like, it's not it's like, look, if somebody throws their arm out, she put in a submission hold. If somebody kicks a leg, submission hold. If someone's trying to do a roll up, submission hold. And I think that's the issue that they should work on, because it's almost like when someone throws their arm, Ronda Rousey, they're having her do a wrestling hold. It's like, no, she's an MMA person that's known for submission holds. Everything should be a submission hold. Boom, 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 boom. Where the opposing wrestler should be on the defense. And I don't know, it's just really clunky because, man, I love those submission holds that Ronda Rousey puts people in, man. It's so entertaining. Then you had from there, you had the Russian leg sweep by Emma. Emma did a suplex. Then Ronda Rousey got the upper hand, did the Piper's Pit. Then an armbar submission. She wins. And, I mean, that was basically the match. Then we get a announcement that Bayley and Bianca Belair will wrestle in a last woman standing match at Crown Jewel. Man, I don't know. We just have to wait and see how everything's going to play out after Crown Jewel. I do feel like a lot of, and I mentioned this on the Raw review this past Monday, that it does feel like a lot of the momentum and just progression with a lot of stories slowed down as we get closer to Crown Jewel, but it does feel like the storylines progression after Crown Jewel are going to pick up. But that's to be determined, if it happens, because we had similar thing to Clash at the Castle, and we still got, I don't know, it's just really interesting how this plays out. Of course, Extreme Rules, you had Bray Wyatt's debut, but outside of that, a lot of the storylines have been, with the exception of Liv Morgan, it's just little things. But again, we just got to wait and see how this plays out until we get to 2023, which is going to be a very fun year in all of professional wrestling, I personally think. Then from there, you got Legado El Fantasma versus Hit Row and their surprise partner, Shinsuke Nakamura. It surprised me. I honestly thought it was going to be Carmelo Hayes, but that was not the case because we have seen video and pictures of Carmelo Hayes wrestling on the main event before Raw and SmackDown. So it's like, it could be Carmelo Hayes. And no, it was Shinsuke, which was a great alternative because it was what most people didn't expect, but it was a good, man, didn't expect this because the match actually turned out really good. You had he came out, then you get a back in between the entrance and the actual match started. You had a backstage segment with Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler. Natalya comes up and she's like, if I was out there, I would have won the women's champion. And Shayna Baszler chokes out Natalya. Now, this is a story that they've been teasing for a while, and I wish they would just pick up on it. Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler as a team. Like, that is a two-man or a two-woman power trip that they should go with, and they should just go with it. They should have all the women's titles because those two together, that's a very good tag team that who the hell's going to stop them? Like, who? Who is going to realistically stop Shayna Baszler and Ronda Rousey? Like, no one. And the amount of submission holds and the variation to these submission holds would be spectacular. So after that, we get, Legado El Fantasma and Hit Row and Shinsuke Nakamura. They start off with brawling. Then all mayhem breaks loose, and then eventually you have B-Fab. She kicks Selena with a running knee. Then you got Hit Row and Shinsuke. They're all with Shinsuke Nakamura and come on. So you have that. Then you had Legado get the upper hand. You had a nice sliding suplex by Santos where the person's on a rope and he slides and suplex. I love that. Man, I wish more people would do that move. That's a sweet, sweet move that I see wrestlers execute. Man, Santos Escobar did a fantastic job executing that move. Then you had Top Dollar. He had Santos in like the test of strength, but then he runs up the rope. He runs on the top rope. He does some type of hand gesture, and then he does a chop, which I thought was freaking amazing. His agility is insane. I honestly haven't seen that type of agility for a big man like him since like Bam Bam Bigelow, which man, you could see some similarities between Top Dollar and Bam Bam Bigelow. And man, I hope, man, Top Dollar, man, keep an eye on that guy, man. That guy's got a bright future, and he's got the charisma to pull it off. So with that, you had, after Top Dollar did the Lucha spot, you had the running, I believe it was Shinsuke got the pin, so they wound up getting the pin and beating Legado, El Fantasma. Then we cut backstage to Heyman and Roman Reigns. Shows a video of Logan Paul training. Paul Heyman mentions like, hey, he has steel pins in his right hand, which he uses to punch people, which is why he knocks people out. And he also mentions like, hey, Brock Lesnar won the UFC title in his third match, and Roman Reigns is like, it doesn't matter. He won. He only had 2 matches. So, man, I don't think they're going to do it where they're going to have Roman Reigns lose the world title to Logan Paul. But then there's a part of me that's starting to think, if you do that, you are going to cause a major media stir, and like that is going to be insane buzz. I don't know if it's going to be positive or negative. It could be split, but man, you are going to cause major news if Roman Reigns loses to Logan Paul and Logan Paul becomes the new WWE Undisputed Universal Champion. Like, that would be insane, and it's going to get a lot of people talking. I don't think they're going to go that route. But man, if they did, oh boy, man, that is going to be a topic of discussion for a long, long time. So we just got to wait and see what's going to transpire on November 5th at the Crown Jewel pay-per-view between Roman Reigns and Logan Paul. From there, we get a backstage segment with LA Knight. He's interrupted by Ricochet, and this was kind of like very weird because Ricochet's like, well, you think you're God's gift to SmackDown, and LA Knight's like, well, you know what? I am God's gift to SmackDown, and walks away. I don't know. They're trying to build a feud with Ricochet and LA Knight. It just really, like, Ricochet really came off like, it was so random. Like, okay, so you're threatened by this guy. Like, he came off more like the heel. Like, just really weird. Then you had Karrion Kross versus Madcap Moss, and I mean, this crowd was very quiet. Of course, this was to build the match between Karrion Kross and Drew McIntyre, Crown Jewel, in a steel cage match, but it was a decent match. But man, this crowd was just very quiet, and it's hard to gauge a lot of stuff that WWE's doing right now and what Triple H is doing right now on SmackDown and Raw. Most of it, again, Bray Wyatt, Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, the Bloodline. Trying to think of what else. Other outside of that, everything else is just it's hard to gauge where it's going, where it's coming, how it's going to flow. It's just it's very difficult to gauge. That's why it baffles me when people like, oh, this absolutely sucks, or oh, this is the best thing ever. Like, it's really hard to gauge. Like, you really can't say, oh my god, this is so awesome, and then, oh, it's so terrible. Like, no, you can't say it. So it's just really, this match was really, really interesting. Karrion Kross wound up getting the win. It was interesting because a few weeks ago you had Madcap Moss in a match, and like, it's just really, I don't know, just really weird. Like, really weird, and like really difficult to really gauge how the rest of these guys, outside of, the wrestlers that I mentioned, Bray, Roman, the Bloodline, and Seth Rollins, like, how and where this is gonna go. I don't know. We'll see where this goes. So after that, we get backstage segment of Bray Wyatt. Then we have Rey Mysterio, and he gets jumped by Imperium, and Gunther chops him. So again, next week we're getting, I believe next week we're getting Rey Mysterio versus Gunther. Again, another thing that, Gunther's been, you could put Gunther in that group of people where it's like, okay, you know where he's going. But outside of that, it's like a lot of stuff is just really, it's hard to gauge. What's, like, is it good? Is it bad? Is it like, Is it like, it's just really hard to gauge what's being presented to us. For me, personally, I'm not speaking for everybody else that watches, but for me, it's just really difficult to gauge, if something's, oh man, this is really good, or I'm not really feeling it. Like, it's really hard, difficult to gauge. So we get Bray Wyatt coming out. You get the welcome back chants, and it's basically what we've seen the last couple of weeks. He gives a promo. I'm proud to be here. I'm going to do some spectacular things. I've been out of control. I faced some adversity. And then we get the video screen, and it was really difficult to, what was he was saying and everything, because they're cutting, they're editing. You got QR codes and all this stuff. And then we get a shot of the person. You could tell this is like a really Hollywood-style latex mask. And it's Bray Wyatt's Uncle Howdy. I'm very concerned about this. I love Bray Wyatt. I love the creativity, but the way this this reminded me of like an old Western ghost story. So what everything's being reported as far as Bray Wyatt and what again, it's hard to gauge this, but the Uncle Howdy thing, and okay, is this? And you look at the face, and it's like, okay, that looks like Bray Wyatt with a mask over, like this latex detailed mask over itself. So is it Bray Wyatt? Is it Bo Dallas? I don't, man. I'm really concerned because it's like, okay, are we gonna get, this is already this is 2 weeks, 3 weeks of Bray Wyatt pretty much doing the same thing at the same time to end the show. So, which is smart because you're going to get people talking and tuning in and like, oh man, I need to tune in next week. The first time it happens, like, ooh, I want to tune in next week to see where's this going to go. But now, for me, it's like, okay, Uncle Howdy, all right. And I think it's the name, like Uncle Howdy, like, huh? And like it's I'm really concerned because it's like, and I'm glad to see Bray back, but man, I hope this goes into a direction that makes sense, and where it goes to the people that are reportedly aligned with Bray comes to some fruition. But if this goes into, like, I hope this doesn't go into some hokey storyline that's like just keeps going, and then it's like, okay, I don't know where this is going. Like, I hope it doesn't get there, but man, I am really concerned because this was really weird, and there's nothing wrong with weird, but weird as far as, okay, it's obvious this is a person with a latex mask on, and okay, what's their thing with Bray? Like, okay, we see the QR code, it's a mental hospital. Like, it's just like, are they doing, for me, it's like, are they doing a little bit too much in this storyline with Bray where, there is a thing where you can add too much creativity where it discombobulates everything, and things just get cluttered, and it's like, okay, we got here, but we got to follow it. Like, you start getting overly creative, and it kind of hinders you to being very punctual to your story, and it just comes across very cluttered to the audience. I hope it doesn't get there like it did with the Fiend character, and before that, a lot of stuff that they did with the Wyatt family when he fought Randy Orton at WrestleMania. Like, I hope it doesn't get to that point because, man, this, I don't know. We'll just wait and see how this goes. I'll wait and see how this plays out, but yeah, I'm not too thrilled, and I'm somewhat concerned where this is gonna go. Hopefully, this gets somewhere, like I said, but I'm really concerned. So that is my review for the October 28th episode of WWE Smackdown. Like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the notifications so that way you're notified when House of Wrestling drops its latest content. Follow me, Dedrian180, on TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram. And with that, let's enjoy pro wrestling, man. Let's have some fun.